and welcome to Newsroom. I'm Ellie Richardson, where today we bring you the top stories of the day and give you a summary. For our first story, we talk about Bangladesh's elections. They have concluded now after the elections have gone from yesterday to today, and they are come at a crucial time where people have wanted these parliamentary elections and unfortunately among some violent incidents as well, where 2 bombs have gone off in 2 of the polls. Allegations of fake voting and pre-signed result sheets and violence have also married to the 13th parliamentary elections in Bangladesh. Now there's this time where it is concluded that the parliamentary elections record voter turnout was 47.91% by noon. There are 2,028 candidates in total, including 273 independents, according to Bangladesh CEC, which says the total of 50 registered political parties participated in the election, even as the Awami League, that dominated the political spectrum of Bangladesh for decades, was banned from participating in the election. Now we know this election comes at a crucial time where many people have called for it and lots of younger generations wanted to have a voice during this election. We are now being joined by our reporter from the newsroom, Maresha. Maresha, what more can you tell us about these Bangladeshi elections?
Yes, well, Ellie, for you and our viewers to know, right now Bangladesh is getting immense traction globally, especially due to the volatile nature of the national elections that are currently underway in Bangladesh. Now, the counting of the votes began after the polls have closed at 4:30 p.m. local time, and this has further gained a lot of traction majorly due to the fact that this comes after the Gen Z protest that happened in Bangladesh, which ended up in ousting Sheikh Hasina, who was the Prime Minister then. She currently is the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Now, tens and millions of voters were eligible, with polls also featuring a referendum on the July Charter of Constitutional Reform. Now, let's talk about the turnout trends that have taken about. Now, early turnout was low in many centers, around 14.96%. Has been estimated by 11 a.m. As of today, which has further been interpreted by critics as a boycott indicator. The fact that the turnout has been so low clearly shows that many have boycotted the elections or taking part of the elections. Now by noon, nationwide turnout approached roughly 32.88%, with higher local figures reported in parts of Dhaka, which is the capital city of Bangladesh. Now, the claims and counterclaims are noteworthy, where former PM Sheikh Hasina's Awami League, now banned from participation, denounced the polls as I quote, voterless, well-planned farce, calling for their cancellation with fresh, fair elections under a neutral caretaker government. Now, Hasina's statement also alleged intimidation of supporters, ballot tampering, and abnormal voter list increases, fueling a lot of rejects in the narrative of this election. Now, the interim leader, who was placed in replacement of Sheikh Hasina, Muhammad Yunus, is overseeing the polls. He hailed what he described as a legitimate process. Now, considering all of the elections, it's also, you cannot turn a blind eye to the violence and the incidents that took place on the day of the poll. Now, incidents of violence and irregularities have been reported from Dhaka, with clashes, heckling, and disturbances at multiple centers within Bangladesh. Now, a crude bomb was thrown at a polling station, injuring at least 3 people, including security personnel, a child, though voting further continued even after the incidents. A BNP party leader has also been reported to have died after a clash at a polling center. what's next and the counting outlook
Thank
further
you,
followed
Maresha.
is.
Don't go too far, as we will be back with you very shortly. NATO defence ministers have joined in Brussels to talk about European defence and strategies for Ukraine and Greenland. They are facing pressure to shoulder more responsibility as US prioritises shift to other regions. The meeting comes after NATO announced it is increasing its presence in the Arctic and surrounding area after a dispute over Greenland led to a rift between the United States and European allies. US President Donald Trump had at times threatened to annex the Danish-administered island, justifying it by saying that Russia or China might otherwise seize it. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is expected to be represented by Undersecretary Elbridge Colby at the meeting. This makes Hegseth the second US cabinet official to skip a high-level NATO meeting in recent months. Hegseth shocked NATO allies at last year's defence ministers' meeting with blistering remarks on Europe's low defence spending and military dependence on the US. We are now being joined again by our live reporter, Maresha. Maresha, what more can you tell us about this meeting that's going on with the NATO defence ministers?
Yes, well, Ellie, let's talk about what's happening in Brussels at this point. NATO is holding a summit in Brussels, and the top focus is, in fact, many diplomatic talks which are underway. What we see right now are high-level talks at stake. These talks define the future of peace or stability within the Arctic Circle, within geopolitical relations between the NATO alliance and the nations globally. Let's talk about the NATO ministers, where they reaffirm commitment towards Ukraine. This has been rather the top focus of the talks that are happening in Brussels at this point. Now, at a defense ministerial in Brussels, NATO members emphasize that they support Ukraine and they remain as an alliance is top priority despite recent discussions on the Arctic security. Now, the launch of the Arctic Sentry mission has been one of the outcomes that has come about in this summit, where NATO introduced the Arctic Sentry mission to strengthen its presence in the High North. Now, the initiative will coordinate activities of all 32 allied nations in the region, aiming to enhance operational effectiveness in the Arctic Circle. Obviously, Greenland's dispute is also on talks, which raised temporary tensions over Greenland, particularly with, like you mentioned, US President Donald Trump's threats regarding the territory has sparked fear for NATO's potential. Parallel priorities for NATO are also seen, where the Arctic Sentry focuses on enhancing NATO's Arctic defense capabilities. The ministers were unclear that the support for Ukraine will not be compromised. They have affirmed that they will be supporting Ukraine and there will be no compromise on their support. A lot of pledges have been made with regards to UK and Germany and Sweden, where they've come about and issued joint statements with regards to military support for Ukraine. So all in all, Ellie, this is what we know about the NATO summit happening in Brussels at this point. More updates to follow as we keep track of the news.
Thank you, Maresha. Don't go too far, as we will be back with you very shortly. US President Donald Trump and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met in Washington to discuss talks over Iran, and they have said they've reached no definitive agreement on how to move ahead. In their 7th meeting since Trump took office last year in January, Netanyahu was hoping to press Trump ahead of next round talks between the US and Iran. following negotiations held on Tehran's nuclear program in Oman on February the 6th. While there has been no agreement on how Washington would move forward, Trump insisted that negotiations with Tehran will continue to see if two sides can achieve a deal. Netanyahu was expected to press Trump to widen diplomacy with Iran beyond the country's nuclear program and to include limits on its missile arsenal. But during the meeting, he stressed Israel's security interests and it would be taken into account. In a statement released after the meeting, Netanyahu's office said the Prime Minister emphasized the security needs of the State of Israel in the context of the negotiations, and the two have agreed to continue their close coordination and tight contact. Following this meeting, Trump wrote on social media, "I have just finished a meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel and various of his representatives. It was a good meeting and a tremendous relationship between the two countries." We are now being joined again by Maresha, our live reporter from the newsroom. Maresha, what more can you tell us about the meeting with Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu?
Yes, well, Ellie, yet another high-stake dialogue and bilateral talks between the two nations, US and Israel, with their leaders, US President Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, who have met to talk about security and military reinforcement or military action in Iran. Now, to talk about the focus of diplomacy over the military action regarding Iran, both the leaders remained in close coordination, as I quote from a statement. The 3-hour closed-door conversation ended without a definitive agreement on nuclear terms when it comes to Iran. Now, let's talk about the latest updates and key outcomes of this bilateral that happened. Diplomatic priority on Iran has been the top focus of this bilateral, where Trump explicitly stated he insisted that negotiations with Iran must continue to see if a deal can be consummated. He expressed a preference for diplomacy but warned that if talks fail, as I quote Trump's statement, "we will just have to see what the outcome will be," alluding to potential military action. Now, Israel joins the Board of Peace as another outcome of the bilateral, where Netanyahu officially signed the accession for Israel to join Trump's Board of Peace initiative during a meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio at Blair House. Now, the board, which was US's initiative, which includes 19 countries, is tasked with overseeing the Gaza ceasefire and reconstruction efforts. Further to which, another outcome that has come about of this bilateral is the conflicting demands of the missile program, where Netanyahu urged Trump to include Iran's ballistic missile programs in any future nuclear deal. However, Iran has declared its missile capabilities non-negotiable. The status of the Gaza ceasefire of an international peacekeeping force. Now, all in all, the talks have not only been with regards to Iran, but further, it comes at a crucial time as globally we seek a long-lasting ceasefire and de-escalation of violence within the Israel-Gaza Strip. So talks did include Iran and its nuclear capabilities, but also did center around the Gaza Board of Peace and further outcomes, and a lot of comments coming in from both leaders and globally. We are tracking reactions, but as of now, this is what we have as the key outcomes and takeaways of the bilateral between Netanyahu and Trump. Back to you, Ellie.
Thank you, Maresha, for joining us today on Newsroom. A trial date has been set for President Donald Trump's trial for his defamation lawsuit against the BBC. It's to be scheduled for February in Miami next year. In this lawsuit, President Donald Trump is suing a 2024 Panorama episode that edited together clips of him addressing supporters on the day of 2021 attack on the Capitol in Washington, D.C. Mr. Trump has said it has given the impression he indicated violence and encouraged people to storm the building. The edited clip used sound bites from the president that were 50 minutes apart in reality, but were spliced together to say we're going to walk down to the Capitol and I'll be there with you and we fight. The 6th of January attacks on the Capitol is a day of infamy in modern US history, which a Senate report said led to a loss of at least 7 lives, including 5 police officers. The BBC has apologised for the edit and admits it had given a mistake impression that President Trump had made a direct call for violent action. It has tried to get the claim dismissed on several grounds, such as arguing that the episode wasn't available in Florida or the US and that the court lacks jurisdiction. But Florida Judge Roy K. Altman said today that a 2-week hearing would start on 15th of February 2027 and that a BBC attempt to delay the discovery part of the case, where both sides can get evidence from each other, was premature. A BBC spokesperson said, as we have made clear previously, we will be defending this case. We are not going to make further comment on the ongoing legal proceedings. President Trump is claiming seeks $5 billion for defamatory and $5 billion for unfair trade practices. That's all we have time for this round of Newsroom. Stay tuned to NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.